Welcome back to the table. Today, Emily and I are going to tell you about La Familia because, well, we didn't just play it. We did just play it last night.
Yes.
This is a 4-player only game where you play in 2 teams, but everyone is representing a sort of mob family in Italy, and you cooperate with one of them, and then the other 2 people are going to cooperate against you, but you're also still kind of playing your own game.
Definitely. We're opposing forces, but we are trying to grab different areas of Italy. And so our objective as a team is to grab either 6 of those territories together or have one of us grab 5 of them.
Yeah.
And we're trying to do this by working together, but like David said, we're our own families doing our own things on the board.
Yeah, and if you heard, area control or big heavy game, don't tune away just yet because
Keep listening.
Those are 2 things that neither of us are big fans of necessarily. I don't like big, long, heavy games.
And I hate area control.
She does. She's not sugarcoating it for sure. And this does both of those things, but there are a lot of things about this that we really do enjoy because it makes it feel like a very different and unique experience. But to give you just the briefest of overviews, the game is going to play out potentially over 4 rounds unless one team meets some of those circumstances. And when you do that, each round is going to have a planning phase, which uses this really incredibly interesting mechanism out here.
Yep.
And then an encounter phase, which is where you're resolving everything that's happened to the map during the planning phase. So the planning phase is going to do a number of different things. Some of that is going to be putting order tokens, which we have here, out onto this map.
The only thing that happens in between is there's a slight, very quick maintenance phase where we're going to check to see if you own a region. You specifically have to have a territory in 2 of the regions, 2 parts of the region, to get that region. So if I own one and David owns one, we as a team don't own it.
Right.
I have to own 2 of the 3 for it to be then Emily's region. But if I do, we get these super cool ongoing powers that I get to choose from that I now have until I lose control of a region.
Yeah, so what you see also here on the table is just the main board along with some of the player components, some neutral and some money. Off board, we have our player boards, which are robust, to say the least.
Yes.
There's a lot of things going on here. We have these player pieces that are going to be removed from 4 different tracks that give us increased abilities and powers, maybe unlock some bonuses. And then there are some order tiles that are going to be, in addition to the 5 that you start with, these are the order tiles that you're going to want to peel off your player board behind your player screen so that when it's time to put orders out on the map, you have more orders to put out there.
And these orders are cool too, right? Because they're asymmetric. So my powers as the red player are different than the yellow, the green, and the blue. And I know what green and blue can do as my opponents because we have these cool player helpers that I can actually see what's possible for them. But they are very distinct from each other.
They are very distinct, and it's distinct and you're not going to look at the sheet and go, oh, I see exactly how they're different. They're doing a lot of the similar things, but doing things in very different degrees or different powers.
Yeah.
And it's going to take at least a game to play before you really appreciate those differences for sure.
Exactly.
The game is going to have that planning phase, like I said, and that's where you're using this. At the beginning of the game, you have all these gray pieces, which are neutral, and then each player is going to put 2 of their pieces in some of these columns. The course of the game has, on your turn, you're taking one of these pieces and potentially bringing it down here to use one of these many actions. These actions do anything from gaining money from the drug labs that you've put out here, potentially putting some of those orders out that we were talking about, doing things to recruit soldiers or put the soldiers out onto the board, and then potentially getting boats, more drug labs, and potentially some cars. Because yes, this is a mob game or Mafia game, so there's going to be car explosives and things like that going
bombs.
on. But the cool thing about this mechanism is as you're using it, these tokens are going to be coming down here, and then for the next planning phase after the encounter, all these pieces will be down here in some order. It just depends on who picked what and where they put them. So it could be down here in all sorts of different ways. The next planning phase, the beginning of the second round, this is going to move up, and then the new one is going to come out with slightly different abilities, a lot of the same, but maybe some new ones, maybe some more powerful ones, more expensive ones. But it's a really interesting mechanism here because people are going to be, again, using them to take these actions. And then across the top, you'll see these sort of column-specific actions that you can take to really start peeling some of these tokens off your player board and juicing up your powers.
Yeah, the column actions are really juicy, but they're very expensive.
Incredibly expensive.
And they play a lot of mind games because you're thinking about, okay, if I do a column, it's going to be more expensive than number of people who are there. And if those people who are there are not my own, I then have to pay additional money to everyone who has a token there, even if it's my partner. So I might like giving money to my partner because now they have money instead, but I definitely don't like giving money to my opponents, and it makes it very expensive in a game where money is so tight.
Money is stupid tight in this game because you're going to run out of it, and then if these spaces are taken here, you're going to have to figure out ways to get money, and like Emily said, one way, you can't just freely give money to your partner.
No.
I have to use one of her tokens in order to give her $1, which is usually something you don't want to do, but it may be the only way you can give money. The alternative is on your turn, anytime you can get rid of one of your order tokens behind your screen, which you don't generally want to do.
Because it's gone for good.
It's gone for good out of the game, and you're just getting $1. But I can tell you, with just the one play of the game that we have, there's going to be times you're probably going to want to consider that. If I played again, I would definitely consider doing that because you could, late in the game, go, you know what, I haven't been using these 3 orders, I'm not going to use them, I'll get $3 and be able to make a big move with money that people didn't know that you had.
So once we have all of the player pieces down at the bottom, that'll be done with the planning phase.
Yeah.
We'll do a little bit of maintenance to see if anybody owns any regions, see their powers, and then we do the encounter. So any orders that are on the board will flip up. We'll see what everybody put on there. It's a big reveal because you're not sure what these orders are going to be. And then there's 2 types of orders. You can have supply or attacks. So we'll do all the supply ones first, starting with the lower numbers, going up to the highest. Although these ones can be done mainly simultaneously. But then the attacks, the order very much matters. Because you can have attacks where I do an attack with the lower number, and that could take out like David's whole region.
Yeah.
And now even if he had an attack in there, that goes back to his player board. He doesn't get to do it.
Yeah, the resolution of the order tiles is really, really interesting. And it brings me to one of the things that I think I want to talk about in terms of who this game is for. And that's if, we talked about this and we thought, well, people who like big, heavy area control games. That's true, for sure.
Sure, yeah.
If you're looking for an area control game that has a lot of meat,
this will
and
get
I mean
you
heavy Euro-style meat, this is your game. But more importantly, I think if you're someone who wants mind games at the table, this game has it in spades. Like more so than poker potentially, because there's a few particular elements that we want to talk about that really emphasize the mind games, but there are mind games, it doesn't stop.
No, it never stops.
This aspect, which is called finesse, is just the cherry on top of the mind games because everything someone's doing, even when someone's talking to their partner, you're like, what are they talking about?
Yep.
What are they doing? Did they just get inside my head?
Alicia and I were talking constantly. Like the whole game, we were just whispering to each other.
Yeah, and it's hard because you're talking to your partner, trying to keep it down. You're also trying to listen a little bit. But these finesse cards I want to talk about because part of the resolution of the combat is very interesting because if you're a player who likes deterministic combat, it got it.
That.
If you're a player who wants to go in and maybe take a little risk,
yes.
Or if you're a player who wants to go in and do combat where the odds are against you already.
Yeah.
Like say you haven't built up a big force and you're kind of limping into a territory. You can limp in and say, you know what? We're going to finesse. Mm-hmm. And that brings in these 3 cards. And I won't go through the whole process, but there's a couple coward cards. There's a turncoat card. And each player is going to put one of them down. And then whoever's defending gets to decide whether they want to pick up the one their opponent played. So I could have put down the cowards or the turncoat. If it's the cowards and Emily takes it, and then I say, oh, I'm not going to take your card because that's the next thing I do, then she has both cards. She might flip them up, and then she has to resolve both of those cards. In this case, she had 2 cowards, which I didn't take, but she also took my turncoat. Mm-hmm. So the turncoat is going to happen first, and it's going to turn one of my people into one of hers. But
that's great.
Then 2 of her people are going to be cowards and they're going to run back and go behind her player screen. So these are part of the things that can really completely change.
Oh, yes.
Like had I put 2 cowards, her whole forces could have just
gone.
run away and I could have won with 1 force.
And it's so interesting because, like you said, you can end up with 0, 1, or 2 cards in front of you. So there could be multiple things resolving, there could be nothing resolving, and it goes from like you could go in with 1 person against a group of 4 and still win it somehow if you finesse it just right.
Yeah, and it can feel a little, I wouldn't say chance, because it is you're making the decision. This is not like you're rolling a die and I'm rolling a die. Oh, you rolled higher.
Yeah.
This is, I'm putting this card down. And there can be tons of table talk. And there was last night because we're sitting there like, oh, I'm putting this down if you want to take it.
David goes on the first one and he goes, I'm not going to take it before Alicia even put anything down.
If you love getting into each other's heads and you love mind games, I'm telling you, this game has it in spades. Now, the flip side of that is it has it to the point where by the end of the game, and it is a long game, it says 120 to 180. I'd say easily 180.
Yes, easily.
Plus. Our game took, what, 4?
Plus. Very much plus.
Very much plus. Now, we did have a pizza break in the middle, but still, it is a long game. But those mind games can be kind of emotionally and mentally taxing by the end of the night because you're not turning it off. You're constantly just going, and by the end of the game, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but I was a little kind of just, man, I felt like it takes it out of you a little bit. But it was really interesting because we had some big swings.
We had really big swings.
If you like mind games, this game might be for you. Who do you think this game might not be for?
I think this game would not be for someone who wants a lighter experience, right? Somebody who just wants to be able to just go in and do what they had planned and be like, I planned this, it worked out this way, I got 5 steps ahead, I know what's happening. Because you don't know what's happening in this game, right? Even when you think you do, then suddenly your opponent takes a move, they put a bunch of guys in one spot, and you're like,
what's going on?
What's that? What? Now all the moves I had been planning on doing, I'm like, shoot, should I even still stick with my plan or should I do something different? So for somebody who likes like a lot of strategy and heavy games where you can just like be like, this is what I'm doing for my next 6 moves, this is not going to work out well for you. The other big thing I would say too is that it is definitely a team game, right?
Yes.
So even though I can't use your people, you can't use mine, there's a lot of restriction on it, it's still, if you're not playing it with your partner, then I think you're just not going to do well. Like, your sum has to be greater than your parts in order to really excel at this game.
Yeah, you definitely have to give as much thought to what you can do to help your teammate as ask them for help, for sure. Because you can't really just be focused on like, oh, hey, you should do this because it'll help me.
Yes. You
don't want to do that for sure. You really have to think about it in a much different way. And it makes for a very unique game experience, I think.
Yeah, and being a 4-player too, it's like, you got to think about who you're playing with, and it's even a game like, I don't know that I'd want to play it with strangers.
No, it is a game that I think if you played it with strangers, you might get someone who just plays games differently than you.
You could have a different play style than them, and it could just rub the wrong way in a longer experience like that. I don't know that would really lead to everyone having fun at the table.
Right, yeah.
So I think it's not for people who are just with a random group at a random game day who are like, let's just try this.
Yeah, this is an event game, I'd say. This is not a game that you're just going to say, hey, what do you want to play tonight? Oh, let's get La Familia out. This is a game that you're going to say, hey, this Saturday, we're getting together. It's you, and you. Great group. We're going to get together and play La Familia again. And with that said, it is going to be a while probably. But this is not going to be something we play tomorrow and the next night.
No.
So we've gone a little long here. This is a little more than I just played. But hopefully we can figure out a way to get a little bit more content up on this. Probably not a round 1, maybe not even a full review. But we can tell you right now, even though this game wasn't necessarily for us.
No, I read the rule book and I was like, ooh. I enjoyed it.
We had a lot of fun playing this. So if you have a lot of time and the right group of people, this could be a lot of fun. If you have any questions at all about the game, please make them in the comments below. We'll be thrilled to get down there and talk about it more because we do want to talk about this more. Maybe even catch a little more conversation on our next chit chat or a chit chat or two from now. Until next time, though, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.